The wind had grown gentle over the northern valley. For the first time in centuries, the blizzards had fallen silent, the snow no longer screaming through the mountains. Even the crimson glow of magma beneath the ice had dimmed to a peaceful, steady hum. This was the world they had saved Kong, the exiled god of the southern jungles, and the White Ice Bear, the eternal guardian of frost. Once, they had been bitter enemies, a clash of fire against ice, of untamed fury against stoic silence. Their epic struggle had nearly shattered the very sky. Yet, from the smoldering ashes of that devastating war, an unspoken bond had formed a solemn vow to protect the fragile, delicate balance between heat and cold, between vibrant life and deathly stillness. Every dawn, as the faint sun brushed its first light across the frozen peaks, Kong would stand upon the highest ridge, his massive frame a silhouette carved against the pale, awakening horizon. He watched the land breathe again. Herds of tundra beasts roamed freely across the vast plains, and rivers, once frozen solid, flowed once more beneath the slow, steady thaw. Above him, the aurora danced, a mesmerizing ripple of blue and green light that shimmered across the heavens like the graceful dance of living spirits. Some nights, he would meet the Ice Bear near the great frozen lake, the very place where the legendary battle had once raged. They would not speak, for words were beneath such ancient and powerful creatures. But there was a profound understanding in the shared silence. Kong would bring stone and lava, mending the cracked earth with the warmth of the planet's core. The bear, in turn, would summon gentle storms, freezing the water to solidify the new land and cooling the molten magma. Together, they forged a new heartbeat for the North, a steady, harmonious rhythm born from both flame and frost. For a time, the world knew a fragile, hard-won peace, but peace, as it often is, was never destined to last. Beneath the thick crust of the northern ice, something ancient and terrible was stirring. Long before Kong, long before the bear, there had been other gods, primordial titans born when the earth was young, when oceans still boiled and the sky was a raw, Untamed canvas. Most had vanished, buried beneath the crushing weight of time and eternal silence. But one had remained, Leviathan, the serpent of the deep cold imprisoned under the great glacier, sleeping beneath eons of frozen, unrelenting storms. It was whispered in forgotten legends that Leviathan's awakening would bring the second ice age, a suffocating darkness so profound it would freeze even the sun in the sky. And far to the south, humankind, greedy, insatiably curious, and tragically blind, had come searching. They arrived in colossal ships built of steel and avarice, their engines roaring and shattering the sacred quiet of the north. They spoke of science, of progress, of exploration. But what they truly sought was power, the raw, untamed energy that pulsed like a dormant heart beneath the ice. They had a name for it: the Frozen Core. Their monstrous machines drilled deep into the ancient glacier. High-powered explosives cracked the primeval crust, sending shockwaves through the frozen land. Deep-sea sensors blinked with artificial light that had never before desecrated this hallowed ground. And deep beneath it all, something vast and terrible opened its eyes. The first tremor came at dusk. A low, distant growl rolled across the tundra like thunder trapped and struggling beneath the ground. Flocks of snow ravens burst into the sky in a panicked frenzy. The aurora flickered violently, its beautiful greens and blues fading into a menacing, blood-red hue. The Ice Bear felt it first. He turned his massive head toward the horizon, his breath misting the frigid air in great, spectral clouds of frost. The snow beneath his paws vibrated, alive with an unseen, malevolent pulse. He roared, once not a roar of challenge, but a deep, guttural warning that echoed across the desolate landscape. Miles away, Kong heard the call. The mountains shuddered with the deep, rhythmic rhythm of his stride as he crossed the frozen plains with immense speed. When he finally reached the bear, the ground split open before them, terrifying rift glowing with an unnatural, sickly light. From its abyssal depths, a wave of icy wind burst forth, colder than death itself, extinguishing all warmth in its path. Something vast was moving below, something with a monstrous heartbeat that shook the very sky. The bear lowered his head, his ancient eyes burning with an intense, sapphire blue light. "It's awake," he growled. The words formed from the chilling wind itself. Kang stared into the abyss. The innate warmth that radiated from his chest dimmed, overtaken by the profound cold that seeped through the air, through his very being. Far, far below, a faint light shimmered not, the familiar orange of fire or magma, but the cold, dead glow of ancient, unforgiving eyes. The earth had begun to tremble again. The Erev still the size of a mountain range, covered in scales of transparent ice that glowed with trapped lightning. Its eyes burned with frozen fire, the color of dying stars. Each movement reshaped the land. Glaciers fell, rivers froze. Mid-flow, the very air screamed. Kong staggered back as a wave of frost burst outward, freezing everything it touched. The ice bear roared in defiance, lowering his head and charging forward. The two giants collided, bear and serpent, power against power, silence against storm. For a heartbeat, the sky was nothing but chaos. Leviathan's tail slammed across the ground, raising storms of razor-sharp snow. The bear's claws slashed through the icy armor, but the wounds sealed instantly, glowing with a pale, cold light. Every blow echoed like thunder, shaking the bones of the world. Kong leaped into the fray, his fist crashing down with the force of a falling mountain. The ice shattered, but beneath it lay another layer, harder, colder. Leviathan twisted, striking back with a beam of freezing breath that engulfed them both. The ice bear howled as his massive frame began to crystallize under the blast. Kong roared in rage and struck again, smashing through the storm until the light faded. When the smoke cleared, Leviathan had retreated into the shadows below, sinking back into the depths. The bear collapsed, his body covered in a frost that refused to melt. Kong knelt beside him. Steam hissed from his skin as the heat of his body fought the encroaching cold. The bear's eyes flickered open, glowing faintly blue. It feeds, the bear rumbled weakly. Every pulse. It drinks the cold. It will not stop until all warmth dies. Kong looked toward the abyss, now pulsing like a living heart of ice. He could feel it. A hunger older than creation, spreading outward like veins through the earth. The warmth of magma beneath his feet began to fade. The Leviathan was consuming the planet's fire. Far to the south, human machines kept drilling. They didn't see the danger, not yet. But the earth felt it. The air grew thinner, the skies dimmer. The balance between fire and frost had begun to collapse. Kong clenched his fist, his eyes reflecting both the magma's red and the aurora is a fading blue. The world could not survive another war of the Titans, and yet there was no choice. He looked again at the bear, the guardian of ice, now trembling under the weight of the cold he was born to control. Kong placed a massive hand upon his chest, rare gesture of kinship. Rest, he growled softly. I will stop it. The bear's breathing slowed. The deep paths beneath the glacier lead to its heart, he whispered. But beware, Fireborn. When even the flame dies in the dark. With that, the ice bear's eyes dimmed, and his body turned still, not dead, but in slumber, preserved within a shell of frost. Kong stood alone against the storm. He gazed across the ruined valley, ice shards scattered like broken glass, the wind filled with the whispers of forgotten gods. Then, he descended into the rift. The tunnels beneath the glacier were endless veins of blue light running through walls of frozen time. Each step echoed with the sound of ancient heartbeats. Shadows of long-dead creatures were trapped inside the ice. Wings, claws, and fangs, all fossilized in eternal sleep. At the core of the world, the temperature dropped beyond comprehension. The magma that once roared beneath the crust now flickered weakly, like a dying flame. And there, suspended in the center of an immense frozen chamber, hung the Leviathan's true form, a serpentine god coiled around a black crystal, the heart of frost. Its chest rose and fell slowly, and with every breath, the ice thickened. Kong felt his skin sting with cold. Steam rose from his arms, then turned instantly to frost. Still, he advanced silent, resolute. As they drew near, the creature's eyes opened again, twin lights of cold eternity staring down at him. You are warmth. The voice boomed inside his mind, like glaciers grinding against stone. You burn what you touch. You were never meant to be here. Kong did not answer. He slammed his fist into the ground, cracking the ice that bound the world. Flames burst from beneath him, weak but defiant. Then burn, the Leviathan hissed, and die. The air exploded in a storm of frozen shards. Kong raised his arms to shield himself, but the cold bit deep into his flesh. He struck again and again, his roars echoing through the hollow earth, but the creature was too strong, too ancient. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was the glow of the heart of frost, pulsing brighter, consuming even the firelight around it. Then, silence. Kong fell into the depths, swallowed by shadow and ice, and somewhere above, the ice bear slept beneath the snow, his dreams filled with storms, and with the faint memory of a friend who would not yield. The first light of dawn crept across the shattered cliffs of Skull Island, painting the frozen peaks in hues of molten gold. At the edge of the abyss, Kong stood, his massive shoulders heaved, his chest still glowing faintly with the residual heat from the battle deep underground. Beside him, the ice bear stirred. Its fur was still singed, yet it glimmered with a frost that seemed alive, a strange counterpoint to the smoldering world around them. For a long moment, the two legends simply watched the horizon. Smoke rose from shattered caverns, mingling with the morning mist. Below them, Skull Island had changed forever. Rivers of fire now cut through ancient glaciers. Steam rose in angry, towering pillars, and jagged peaks broke the skyline like the shards of shattered glass. The Leviathan had been defeated, but the victory was fleeting. A deep tremor shook the land, a groan from the heart of the island itself. From the molten fissures, new threats emerged, creatures, born of fire and ice, corrupted by the very energy of the battle that had saved them. They slithered from the shadows, their jagged scales and claws shining with an unnatural light. The balance of Skull Island was fragile, teetering on the edge of utter destruction. Kong let out a low growl, his eyes scanning the horizon, taking in the scale of the new nightmare. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that he could not fight this alone. The ice bear stood firm at his side, its gaze steady, ready to face whatever came next. Voice shifts, deeper, more resonant together. Kong rumbled, his voice shaking the very rocks beneath them. "We will protect this land, no matter the cost." The ice bear nodded and let out a low, resonant roar that echoed across the valley, a solemn promise given form. The first wave came without warning. The creatures attacked in a furious tide, each wave faster and more brutal than the last. Kong leaped into the fray, his fists like hammers of molten rock, smashing through jagged ice and scaled flesh. The creatures hissed, spewing steam and frost, attempting to entangle him with icy chains that shattered on impact. With every blow, Kong struck them down, crushing bones and shattering their unnatural forms. Alongside him, the ice bear charged. Frost erupted from its claws, freezing everything it touched into brittle statues of ice. They moved as one, fire and ice, weaving a deadly symphony across the desolate battlefield. Every step they took shattered the ground, sending debris flying into the air. Every roar they unleashed seemed to split the sky. Yet, for every creature they destroyed, more emerged. From every fissure, they poured forth serpentine monsters with jagged, frozen spines and lava-born beasts that spat molten venom, turning the ground to slag. Kong growled in frustration and rage. With a mighty leap, he grabbed one of the creatures by its tail and slammed it into a flowing river of lava. Teisei Bear, matching his ferocity, leaped and swiped another, shattering it into 1,000 shards of glittering ice. The battlefield shook as if the world itself was quaking in its final throes. Through the chaos, Kong and the ice bear realized the source of this unending threat. A central magma chamber at the heart of Skull Island. It pulsed with a sickening energy, a malevolent heart that corrupted everything nearby. From within its molten depths, a colossal form began to rise, bigger and more terrifying than anything they had ever faced. The Molten Titan, a creature born of pure fire, bellowed its rage with each step, steam hissing from its molten veins. It charred, and the ground smashed beneath its weight. Rocks shattered, lava spilled in great waves, and the air filled with the suffocating smell of burning stone. Kong met it head-on, his fists blazing with molten energy, striking the Titan's chest with the force of a meteor. The creature staggered, but its claws raked across Kong's side, sending him crashing into a wall of molten rock with a deafening impact. The ice bear roared in fury, sending a wave of absolute frost that clashed with the Titan's immense heat, creating a dense cloud of steam and flying ice shards that momentarily obscured the entire battlefield. A symphony of chaos erupted. Kong rose to his feet, blood and lava dripping from his fists, a primal fire burning in his eyes. The ice bear recovered, frost flowing over its fur like a living river, its wounds sealing under a layer of ice. Together, they attacked again, a coordinated force of pure destruction. Kong punched, and the impact sent molten rock flying like shrapnel. The ice bear swept low, its claws freezing the Titan's legs in place, anchoring it to the scorched earth. The Titan roared, swinging its massive arms in a wide, devastating arc. But each strike was countered by the perfect synergy of fire and ice. The battlefield erupted, lava and frost colliding in violent, explosive waves. Sparks and shards of ice flew in every direction. From above, huge chunks of shattered glacier, dislodged by the tremors, began to fall, adding another layer of chaos to the raging storm below. The two legends fought as one, their instincts perfectly aligned, their actions unspoken. They say bear dove swiping at the Titan's eyes, blinding it for a crucial moment. In that opening, Kong leaped, his molten fists smashing into the Titan's chest in a final, concussive blow. The Titan howled, a sound of agony and rage, staggering backward, unable to withstand the combined force of two legends united. This was the final strike. Kong gathered every ounce of strength he had left, feeling the heartbeat of the volcano thrumming beneath his feet. The magma in the earth responded to his will, wrapping around his arms like living, molten armor. Beside him, the ice bear stood, frost swirling around it in a brilliant column of blue light. Together, they charged, an unstoppable storm of fire and ice, hurtling toward their foe. The Titan screamed, unleashing its final, desperate blast of molten fury. The ice bear intercepted it, channeling the raw energy into a frozen cyclone that spiraled into the sky. Kong dove through the maelstrom, hammering the molten Titan with fists ablaze. The ground shattered. Lava and ice clashed in a dazzling, blinding explosion that lit the sky like a new, violent sun. When the light faded, the molten Titan lay defeated. It was frozen and cracked, a silent monument to the impossible union of fire and ice. The battlefield fell silent. Steam rose from the broken lava flows, mingling with the faint, returning glow of dawn. Kong stood, utterly exhausted, his chest heaving, his eyes still glowing with residual magma. The ice bear staggered, its fur tattered and torn, but it managed a faint, tired smile. They had survived. They had protected Skull Island. Together, they had become more than legends. They had become guardians, bound not by chance, but by choice. Kong looked out over the valley. Broken ice and shattered rock littered the landscape, a testament to the battle's ferocity. Yet, life persisted. Snow rabbits hopped cautiously along fractured ice sheets. The new rivers flowed, steam curling into the cool morning light. The world had been tested to its very limits, and it had endured. The ice bear stepped beside him, and for the first time, Kong smiled. It was not a smile of triumph, but one of deep understanding that even the greatest threats could be faced with loyalty and courage. "We guard this land," Kong rumbled, his voice carrying across the silent valley. "We protect it, no matter what comes." The ice bear nodded, and the two legends stood together, watching as the sun rose fully for the first time in weeks. Beneath, Skull Island breathed once more, a world balanced precariously between fire and ice, between chaos and calm, between the past and the future. And somewhere, deep within the heart of the volcano, the faint pulse of life remained, a quiet, patient reminder that even the fiercest battles are never truly over, only delayed, waiting for the next rise of heroes. The battlefield lay quiet. The echoes of fire and ice had faded, leaving only the soft hiss of steam rising from shattered lava flows. Kong stood tall, his massive chest glowing faintly with magma, eyes still smoldering from the fury of battle. Beside him, the ice bear stood firm, frost glimmering along its fur, proud and unwavering. Together, They surveyed the land they had defended, Skull Island, battered and broken, yet alive. Rivers flowed, snow fell softly, and the wind carried the faint scent of life across the valleys. This was their domain, a world born from chaos, now held in a delicate, newfound balance. The air, once thick with the stench of destruction, now tasted of wet earth and crisp, cold air. The cacophony of war had given way to the island's gentile, rhythmic pulse, a heartbeat they both felt deep within their ancient souls. It was a silence earned through unimaginable conflict, a peace more profound than any they had ever known. For the first time in centuries, the two legends felt a moment of peace. They had faced creatures older than time itself, survived fires that could melt mountains, endured storms that could shatter continents. Yet here they were alive, united, guardians of a world that still breathed. They had walked through the crucibles of elemental rage, Kong's very being infused with the planet's molten heart, the bare living embodiment of the polar frost. Their survival was a testament not only to their individual might, but to the impossible alliance they had forged in the face of absolute annihilation. They were more than just survivors. They were symbols of resilience, living monuments to the idea that even the most opposing forces could find a common purpose. Here, in the stillness, their shared victory felt sacred. Kong knelt before the largest glacier, placing one enormous hand on its crystalline surface. Steam rose from the ice as the warmth of his body met the frozen mass. He could feel the heartbeat of the island, the pulse of life flowing through earth, magma, and snow. It was a connection that transcended thought, a primal understanding that surged through him. The glacier was not just frozen water. It was the island's memory, a record of ages past. And in its cold, silent depths, Kong felt the enduring spirit of their home. He felt the ancient rocks beneath, the fiery veins of lava that were his lifeblood, and the chilling breath of the Arctic winds that gave his companions strength. In that single touch, he communed with the very essence of their world. The ice bear lowered its head, pressing its icy paw beside Kong's. A soft, reverent rumble escaped from its chest, the ancient language of Titans. It was a sound deeper than thunder, a vibration that resonated with the core of the world itself. This was not a gesture of submission, but of equal partnership. The frost spreading from its paw met the steam from Kong's hand, creating a swirling mist that enveloped them both. In that shared contact, a silent pact was sealed, an understanding that words could never fully capture. The bear's growl was an affirmation, a solemn promise that echoed Kong's own unspoken vow. "Together!" Kong roared, his voice echoing across the mountains. "We guard this land, not just for ourselves, but for every living creature that calls it home. Fire and ice, we will stand as one." The sound wave of his declaration rolled over the broken landscape, a king's decree to the very elements. It was a pledge of stewardship, a recognition that their immense power now came with an even greater responsibility. They were no longer just rulers of their respective domains, but unified protectors of a fragile, interconnected ecosystem. His voice was the thunder, the fire, and the will of the island made manifest. The ice bear growled in agreement, frost sparkling in the dawn light. Their bond, forged in battle, strengthened in survival, had become unbreakable. The light of the rising sun caught the edges of its frozen fur, making it shimmer like a constellation of diamonds. Its low, guttural response was not a mere reply, but a harmonization. The cold, steady bass to Kong's fiery tenor. Their oath was not just spoken. It was felt, a seismic shift in the spiritual firmament of Skull Island. They were now a singular entity, a duality of purpose, their destinies woven together as intricately as the volcanic rock and glacial ice that formed their home. And somewhere in the highest peaks of Skull Island, the aurora danced brighter than ever, as if the sky itself celebrated their oath. As the sun rose fully, light touched every broken ridge, every shattered glacier. Kong breathed deeply, feeling the warmth of the day against his molten skin. The ice bear stood beside him, eyes scanning the horizon for any new threat, but trusting the world to hold. At least for now. The morning light was a balm, painting the scars of their battle in hues of gold and rose. It did not erase the devastation, but it promised renewal. For Kong, the sun's rays were a familiar comfort, a connection to the warmth, that powered him. For the bear, it was a moment of calm vigilance, its senses attuned to the faintest shift in the wind, the subtlest tremor in the earth. Though the scars of battle remained, so too did the hope for tomorrow. The bond between fire and ice had not only defeated the greatest threats the island had ever faced, but also created a new legend, a tale of courage, loyalty, and unity that would echo through time. Every fractured peak and newly carved ravine told a story of their struggle and their triumph. The island was forever changed, but it was not diminished. It was reborn, consecrated by the sacrifice and solidarity of its two most powerful guardians. Their alliance was now a part of the island's mythology, a new chapter to be whispered on the winds and remembered in the silent wisdom of the ancient stones. Kong looked down at the bear, placing a gentle, almost human gesture of his massive hand upon his companion's shoulder. The bear nodded, understanding without words. Together, they stood guard, eternal protectors of Skull Island. In that simple, profound moment, the last vestiges of rivalry dissolved, replaced by a quiet, unshakable respect. The warmth from Kong's hand was a comfort, not a threat, and the bear's stoic nod was a confirmation of their shared duty. They turned as one, their gazes sweeping over the vast, wild expanse below. Their watch had begun. They were the mountain and the glacier, the volcano and the Arctic North, a living paradox standing sentinel at the dawn of a new age. And so, dear viewers, the tale of Kong and the Ice Bear comes to its close. For now, a world once threatened by fire and frost, now protected by two legends who chose courage over fear, loyalty over solitude. We have witnessed the birth of an alliance that defies nature itself, a testament to the idea that even in a world of monsters, the greatest strength is found not in dominion, but in unity. Their story reminds us that even after the most devastating storms, a new dawn is possible. If you have enjoyed this epic adventure, please like this video. Your support fuels more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join us on future journeys into worlds of wonder, heroism, and legend. Every click and every subscription allows us to continue exploring these grand sagas, bringing to life the myths and titans that stir the imagination. Let us know in the comments which legend you wish to see next. May your days be filled with courage as fierce as Kong, wisdom as enduring as the Ice Bear, and may you always protect the worlds you hold dear in your heart and beyond. In your own life, you may face forces that seem overwhelming, challenges that feel impossible. But remember the oath of the Titans and find the strength to stand together, to forge alliances, and to guard what is precious to you with unwavering resolve. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next adventure.